hopefully this, thank you. So hopefully this is a lot more of you guys talking today and than me, but excited to kind of see where you guys got and answer any questions you might have from the last one. Before we dive into that, just wanted to kind of put up a couple of summary slides from last time, just to kind of get our minds wrapped back around what we were doing. So from a customer journey map perspective, hopefully what you've been thinking about is what are the personas, who are the different types of customers that we have that we want to map out their journey, and what is it that they could be trying to do? What are the desired outcomes for them, right? What are they trying to get out of the experience, and what are you trying to make sure that they get out of the experience? What are the different steps along the way that they're going to follow, and what are the touch points or the channels that you're going to use as they go through this experience with you? And then what are those moments of truth, right? Hopefully you found a few of these where it's like, this is where we can really be special. This is where we can really make a difference for our customers and differentiate ourselves. And the moments where you get customers to be loyal and continue doing business and kind of wrapping around, because we all know this isn't a straight line, right? It's a circle, and we have to keep bringing customers in. So again, just to throw this up, just to give us a framework. This is the one that we worked out last time. Hopefully, you guys found some different ways to modify this. There's not one right way to do this, but hopefully you thought through your stages, what the goals were, the actions, the feelings, the touch points, the experience, and the learning. So I'm super excited to see, what you guys have, and what we can share as a group and provide each other feedback. And I'll, obviously answer any questions and provide feedback as well. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I will not pick on people or call anybody out, but curious if you guys have just questions maybe from the last time before we start jumping into some of the examples. No questions. That's good, I guess. So I know, Linda, you shared with me earlier that one of the things that you found was another tool that could be used. So I was hoping you might be able to share that with the group.
Sure. I found this great blog that reviewed 25 different ways to do presentations, and journey mapping was one of them. So this, I opened every one, and a lot of them were priced, and some of them, didn't look flexible. So this, I don't know if I should share this or how, maybe I can share. So this company, concept board, and I'm just make sure I share the right screen. And this is screen number 1. I think that's the right screen. Yep. Otherwise you'd be looking at pictures of my grandkids. So this company, Concept Board, they offer a free, and they've lots of templates, but they offer a free journey mapping board that you could have 3 people work on at the same time. You can export it in multiple ways, and it was very easy to use, because as long as you had all of your content ready, you could copy and paste and build it in here. So I will put this up to a larger, but it really followed, now I've personalized this to us, so it really followed your format, but was easy to edit and play with. So if anybody is looking for something that is not costly or something worth trialing, I certainly think that this is worth checking into, this concept board. And they offered a lot of other templates, so I'll examine them for other purposes. But it worked really well.
Yeah, it looks like a great format and easy to work in. I like the little post-it note.
Yeah. So I was able
Format
to.
there that they have. That seems easy.
Yeah, and you can save this, you can export it as a couple different formats, and so it would be easy to share once you had it out. So, but my watch out here is have all your content ready. So what we is identified our different stages, we identified information we wanted to collect about each stage, and then here, this draft one is really one example of one persona and one one situation and we tried to work it through. So for my purposes, I used the color to match what the flow was, and then red is where we had concerns or watchouts. So that was my format.
Very cool. Yeah, I think this is a great tool. I haven't used it, but it looks good. Do you want to, while you have that up, do you want to walk us through that as
Sure,
an example?
sure. I'm just going to copy, I'll reshare. I just wanted to copy into the chat the that website so that anybody could use it if they wanted to. All right, chat that there. So, and I'll go back to share again. And so back to here. And we can see again. Everybody can see my board again, yes?
We can, it's a little, the data's
I'll,
a
I'll
little hard to see, but maybe just a
yeah,
little,
I'll make it larger. All right, so you can
maybe just
zoom
like
out.
50% so we can still see the
Okay, 50%.
board. Yeah.
So for us, we identified um, the need state. So for us, we thought that we needed to consider our consumer's journey as the trigger that got them to buy the product, because that's also part of their experience. And so in my example, I looked at somebody, they need our product. They're either a loyal user, they've used the product before and they're just replenishing, which gives them one set of experiences, or somebody who's responding and trying something new based on seeing a recipe or following up with one of our promotions. And we thought that there were two different drivers of getting the product. And the consumer, of course, would look for their product in whatever way they shop. They have a couple of options, and they have a couple of situations that may happen once they have that product in hand. So the need state, their product search, and if they successfully purchased it, they could have questions. So for the loyal user, their questions might be about any changes they may notice on the package or concern. And if it's a new user, they might look for information that's not on the package. So what would happen next is, they would read the label, they would check this out. They have some options. So I'll go back to my first line here. The customer goal at that point is getting information, what they're going to do as their action. And so then we looked at the interactions. They have a lot of choices. They could go into our IVR, and then these things could happen. They could have the answer right in the messaging, or they could speak to an agent, and the agent could either resolve it, or the agent doesn't have the information to resolve it. And that's where we went into more detail, because this creates some different experiences for the consumer. If they didn't have the information on the package, that could cause, frustration for them or confusion. If they did have the information on the pack, if they didn't have the information, that's a problem. But the consumer may be happy that they had choices on how to get the information. And then depending on whether or not we were able to give them the information right away with what our agent has available, it's either a great experience and they're satisfied, or there's not enough information. And then we have sort of two things to look at: the agent experience, where they have to do follow-up, they have extra steps, and they have to contact the consumer again, and what happens there, and how that may be frustrating for the consumer to not get their information right away. So what we thought was helpful is to look at the pain points and the opportunities to improve based on these different setups. So in the beginning, when the consumer's pain point is not having the information right on the package, we identified, the product detail. And there are limitations with that because we have to meet regulatory things for labels. So we can't put all the information that a consumer wants. Looking for channels, we identified that the opportunities are looking at the self-serve bot, expanding FAQs on the website with the information that people generally ask, and then the opportunities here for us with the consumer actually reaching out to us are making sure that we have the most robust information for our agents so that they don't have to go into the initial contact. So this is like one experience, somebody buying a product and all the possible things that we could think of that would happen to them in that journey. So we wanted to take this to our team and have different situations, and each member of our internal team sort of take this take this and go through the experience. So hopefully your feedback today would help us do a better exercise.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you for being the brave, first person to, show your work. I think you guys did a great job. I love that you just picked one. You picked what should be a relatively simple journey for a customer, but also, it's a complex one, right? Because there's different ways that they can go about doing this. And so you did a great job of kind of capturing, I think, what the customer's trying to do. And I'm curious, other people's thoughts. I have a few, but I'm curious other people's thoughts on, is this the experience that you had? Did you have different ideas when you were going through your first one? Nobody yet. I'll go first and then see if anybody else wants to add in. So I think what is great that came out of it is sort of the last two, rows with, where do we think that there could be some places that maybe we could do a better job for customers and smooth out this mapping. And I like that you thought about some different channels, and you thought about, how do we make sure that the agent is able to give them the information and that they can find it themselves. I think those are really important, that you picked up on both of those. I would say, just from a, customer goal perspective, like maybe follow that through, the whole way, what they're trying to do. So even just in the interactions, are they trying to get it? I can imagine, like, when you talk about the urgency of the request, like, are they right in the middle of this? And like, I need to know this right now. I need to know if I can add this or not based on this allergen or whatever it is. Maybe you have planners that call, but I would bet there's some people who need kind of a more immediate, or maybe somebody's already having a reaction and they're curious if they can rule this in or out as maybe the reason. So, just following through those, what's the customer trying to get or do through those. I think, thinking through, maybe you have agent action here specifically, but I'm wondering if you could broaden that as you talk to your group to, are there other places where maybe there's actions happening, like, from a marketing perspective or the broader organization. I think it's great that you have agents. So maybe you keep that separate and you kind of add in, what's happening or who's contributing from a broader company perspective. I like the customer feelings and customer thoughts of what they, might be thinking here as they go along. And I like that you kind of color coded, they could be having this experience or they could be having that one. It might visually be good to kind of connect those dots or separate the journey maps to say, this is a mapping through here, and this is what could happen if they can't find it. Then maybe their, customer thoughts are different. And so maybe just connecting those visually with a line to say, here's one person's, and you could even give them a little persona or face, right? That just connects those. This person had this experience. This person had a different one because they went to the website to find it to self-serve, and maybe there wasn't a self-service, right? In this case, there isn't. So maybe that's it. Or maybe the IVR, has a different experience than, calling. So that might be a way to kind of, without separating them, so you don't have 25 of these customer journey maps, right? But just have a couple of different personas that go through it.
Okay, thanks very much. I will stop sharing now.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments or thoughts on the one that we just looked at?
I have a question for Linda. You kind of did mention it, but if I could ask, what are your plans with the map? Like, I know you said you want to take it back to your agents and kind of do some more exercises, but just interested, and even for the broader group, like after you've completed your map, what are you kind of thinking to do with it? What are your goals in terms of like implementation or actions?
Well, the first exercise would be having our internal team go through the whole exercise, so everybody can put some perspective or bring in something that we haven't considered, like on my part, and then when we look at the pain points and the opportunities to improve, some of those things will support our roadmap and our departmental goals, like adding a bot or chat so that we can increase our services. So once we can identify that these solve specific problems, we can take that to the people in our organization that would approve that type of investment.
Along those lines, I have a question. Linda, when you, first of all, did you do this on your own or as a, it sounds like as a group, you said
Deb and I managed, we talked through what our situations were. I found the tool and did this example on my own, and we worked it through, and then we're going to take this whole thing back as an exercise. The intention was to go through this in July as a team exercise, but we got hit with a recall, and so our 3 weeks got got tucked away. So we will take this back to our internal team and do it as a departmental exercise so that we can look at other possibilities.
Yeah, that's great.
Shelley, this is Deb Riley. I just wanted to add to this that after we had met the first time, we're now reporting, we have a little bit of a organizational change, and we're now, instead of reporting up to corporate or communications and PR, we're directly with our marketing excellence team.
Okay.
And specifically creative and digital. So we had a staff meeting and brainstorming, and I mentioned customer journey, and it's like everybody's heads were turning and like got really, really excited about it. Yeah. So that is, once we kind of build this out, because we've got our social team in there, we've got our PR team as part of that, we've got our digital website folks in on that, and they're all really, really interested in this. So once we build it out, I'd like to kind of bring them into it as well so that they can be looking at it from their aspect.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's the perfect setup, right? So all of those things fell into place for you guys at the great time because, those are exactly the folks that you need in the room. So good that you've got the support and doing it from all those different angles. You'll find that when you review this with them, I think you'll find that everybody has a little bit different view of where they think the customer is coming or what, how they think they're feeling. And so you'll see this get much more robust as you start to review it with people who just think about the customer from a different angle. But I think you guys did a really nice job of thinking from the customer's perspective versus your perspective, right? So did you go out and actually as a consumer, do this just to see kind of what your experience was? Just curious.
I didn't do the physical transaction, but I walked it through as if I were this person and pulling this out of my pantry, what might I do next? Yeah. Do next. So am I going to, if I'm shopping online or if I'm, going to the store, that was how I thought it through. And then I went through as okay, if I'm just sort of browsing and I see something that intrigues me about a new product, and that's why I sort of did that replenish and try something new as two different facets of it's the same activity and action as like you recognize you need a product, you go to look for it, and then what happens once you find it. And I suppose not finding it would be another detail that I could add here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes, we call it experience the brand and we've got a whole, what you can do to do that. But I think it's worth even maybe, especially when, you work at a place to take the consumer's path. So, calling that 800 number and, which would be funny for you, of course, right? When you've got your team on the line, but calling that number, going in, if you did have, a place on the website to self-serve that information, like going and trying to do it, right? Sending the email, seeing the amount of time it comes back. Sometimes that will help you also like recognize places where, we all have those moments where we're sure that something's happening a certain way. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that didn't actually go as I expected. Or why did that transfer not work right? Or, I didn't get the survey I expected, whatever the case may be. We have those, we all kind of expect things to go the way that we think that they are. And so sometimes just actually experiencing your own brand is a good way to find some of that.
Good, thanks.
Great. Any other?
This is Lydie speaking. Yeah, this is Lydie speaking. Sorry, I was not able to join finally the last time. So, but I knew a bit about the table from one of my colleagues who is already using it. And I really like the idea to use that with a group of people as an exercise or stimulation workshops. And I was wondering, I don't know how is built the webinar, but do you have any kind of e-learning where people could connect to, I don't know if the record we have from the webinar is okay, to teach themselves about that. Of course, we can do exercise after, but do you have something ready to use for any employee or agent to create their awareness around this journey?
I'm not sure if I caught the whole question, but I think you're asking, let me just verify and make sure that I'm answering the right thing. Are you asking who should be in the room and what kind of, people you should bring together to work through these journeys? Or are you asking if there's a software recommendation?
No, in fact, yeah, I didn't see the record of the webinar of last time, so I don't know if we can use it as it is to reuse it with people, to train them on this table.
Yeah.
I don't know what is built, or if not, if you have any material support for us to train people on that.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand now. I will pass that question to Brian. I'm not sure. I know that there was a recording done, and I'm sure that that recording is available. It sounds like a few people have watched it. In terms of, how broadly you're, making that available, Brian, I will leave that with SOCAP.
Yes, thank you very much, Shelley. We do have a recording of the first session where a lot of the information was shared. Lydia, I can resend that to you as well. And maybe we can connect those dots then.
Okay. Thank you. I will look at it and then I will reconnect if needed.
Great. And I'm happy to discuss any of it with you if there's additional information that you'd be looking for, or how we might be able to help you with them if you're looking for help.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Great. So I just saw in the chat and thought I would, point out, Trevor found another template and tool that might be useful. So if you guys are not watching the chat, there's some additional information there that might be good. And there's lots of them. Like I said, I showed the one when we met, but there's lots of tools. And I would say as long as they're easy to use and they come out with an outcome that looks like this kind of format, then it feels like, there's lots of options that you can use for that. Great. Anybody else have one that they want to share? Be brave. It's a friendly group. All right. So did you guys have a chance to, even start this? It's a big project to take on, and, it's hard to find time in our, day job, night job, weekend jobs, right? Did anybody try?
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here, folks. This is gonna be an interactive session. We do need some participation from the audience. So please feel free to jump in at any point here, but also you can talk about your process, maybe any trials or tribulations or something that you ran into that maybe Shelley could assist you with working through, or working with the other departments within your organization, or even a vendor in this process. But again, max participation is greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Or I can just keep talking the whole time, which maybe is not that fun. But no, I have lots of questions. But, how did you guys get started? Have you even gone back? Are you getting pushback, or are people excited about it?
Yeah, I can jump in here. Eric Newman from Boston Beer Company. Been looking at it, really wanted to dive in head first back after the last session, but as you mentioned, it's a huge undertaking and really big to go, okay, build it all out. So something that I've been pushing and looking at doing is connecting with our business and our insights and interpreting. Wow, I'm totally blanking on the names here. But looking at the team that has built out roadmaps for consumer journey purchasing up until then. We haven't done anything post-purchase, which is what I really wanted to take away from this session. But trying to get our drinker types, standard drinkers, all of that journey up until purchase, getting that information as my building blocks to then be able to focus on this post-purchase. I've been able to gain some traction and getting some of those things. Unfortunately, haven't gotten all of them quite yet to be able to fully dig my teeth into this, but it has been super awesome to see and gain a lot of this insight and see different formatting and things like that. But I think a big piece for me, as we have everything else going on, still talking with drinkers, still doing the day-to-day, is if there's already been a foundation built, within your organization, being able to use some of those building blocks to get you on to your own steps to be able to feature it back and bring back those insights.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that that you guys have names for your drinker personas. And I'm curious if, I guess a suggestion would be, let's maybe go build on what they already have rather than trying to start from scratch, because I think the people who did that are probably interested in expanding, the personas and the journeys that they have already built out. Because if you have I'll just use your example of a standard drinker, right? So I think that the people who are trying to sell more, to the standard drinker would be interested in knowing, what does that standard drinker call us about afterwards? What are the things that, and so if you can kind of continue that journey of what do they think is happening, right? And connect those dots for them. And then what actually happens, or which persona, right, calls us the most. So having the rest of that customer journey and then being able to provide them insights based on, what is really happening, or, what are the channels that they have available to buy on versus what do they have available to get service on. Maybe those match and maybe they don't, and maybe the information is different, but that I think would be an approach that might work to kind of help you get started, but also get some help with it and some support from, not that you're not getting support, but some extra energy from the other groups.
Absolutely. And even on top of it, like, for example, with it, as it comes to Samuel Adams, probably our most well-known brand, our core drinker is, an older demographic, let's say 40s white male, and we're looking at, okay, well, we want to appeal more to LDA or early 30s, late 20s, multicultural drinker. And it's like, okay, well, we have different profiles for each of them. Our older drinker or core drinker is looking at and calling us or emailing, and then some of this LDA is reaching out through social media or Instagram DM. So all these different contact channels, and really mapping out for each one of those channels as well is going to be a big undertaking and challenge, but also opportunity to deliver those insights of, okay, well, as our drinkers continue to evolve, how can we meet them where they are and best service them in post-purchase to ultimately get them back to repurchase.
That's right, because it's not a straight line, right? So, even those people who are purchasing, how do you get them interested in a different product? How can you adjust their journey after a purchase of something, right? To get them interested in another journey and doing more things. Maybe, you guys have thought about beer as a service. If you haven't, maybe I'll throw that out there, right? Having it delivered on a regular basis, and, having people just, connected to as a brand as something that's a part of their day to day. Thanks for sharing, Eric. Who else has started or hasn't been able to start, and why not?
Chair. This is Deborah from Travel Zoo. Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
After I took the first workshop, I had a meeting with my team, which consists of myself, our global head of customer service, and 2 other managers who manage different products within the customer service portfolio, both for North America and Europe. And we talked about the types of journeys that we think we would benefit from mapping. So we made a list of things where we think we could gain more insight, where we could benefit from more insight in. And some of them are very hot topics for us right now. Refunds are a big topic in our industry. We're travel industry. We're selling items that you can buy now, use later. You can also get a full refund if you don't go, all because of COVID and the way it's impacting people's decisions around travel. So our refund journey is a very hot topic right now, and how easy members find it or don't. And so we were able to agree that that's where we should focus our map. And we wrote down, so we took the first step of actually doing the journey ourselves. So we got on a Zoom and we became the member, and we bought a voucher and we went through the steps of refunding it so we could map out all the different, just the way the process goes. And we realized as a team that we do this all the time. This is what we do when we want to find out how a member feels. All we need to do now is put it in the structure, the document, the framework that we saw kind of in the map. So it's kind of eye-opening for us to say, hey, we do this all the time. It's just not, we never called it a journey map, and we never put it on paper technically. We usually just screenshot it. But it was really interesting to see it take shape as a process and then be able to document it, which we didn't do yet, but we know where we're going to start, and we know what we hope to get out of it, which is basically those, similar to what we saw earlier. We want to get those pain points identified and then make those interactions easier for members.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love that you guys, experienced your own brand and that you do that on a regular basis. Did you find some aha moments as you were going? You don't have to share exactly what the pain points were, but did you find some aha moments of, oh, like that maybe isn't exactly how we expected that to go, or, that wasn't maybe as smooth as I would like my customer to experience?
We did find those moments. We don't have solutions for some of them. Some of them we do. But yes, we definitely found some aha moments that we thought were driving members in a direction that nobody expected them to go.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's what it's about. And then, of those, there's probably some of them that are within your control, and there's probably some that aren't. And
Right.
one of the beauties of documenting it is to really easily and visually be able to share that across the organization, to say, like, this isn't just what I think, right? I don't just, hey, we have an idea for you. They're like, great, we've got, a whole closet of good ideas over there. But if you can put it onto a piece of paper and share it with somebody visually or digitally, right? And say, we did this, and this is really what's happening, and here's some areas. I think it just, carries some more weight, versus, just saying like, hey, we have an idea for you of how you can improve what you're doing.
And that's really where we're going to get the mileage out of this. So thank you for the assistance in helping us push that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who else wants to share kind of where they've been so far? Nobody? All right, new question.
Hey Shelley, this is Trevor.
Hi, Trevor.
So thanks for the initial workshop, and today this is definitely helpful. I have not had a chance to create a journey map, so I'm definitely in that camp of like just trying to gather as much information as possible.
Okay.
I will say, so I'm on the customer support team at Chick-fil-A, and our customer support team also recently had a reorg. So we were under marketing, and now we're under our sort of general support organization.
Okay.
So that used to focus on restaurants, but now it's both restaurants and customers. And so in the midst of that journey, we have really an opportunity to revamp our corporate customer service, really like platform, operating model, org chart, like top to bottom. So I think it does kind of feel like getting into the sort of the weeds of customer journey mapping with like specific customer support journeys. Like that feels like something maybe down the road. And currently we're focused on these really big rocks of, again, operating model, overhauling like ticketing systems and things like that, like things that we know have to get done. So I guess the question there is like, is there a place for customer journey mapping at that super high, like organizational level? Or is it really more valuable at that sort of like individual customer pain point level?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that there is a place for customer journey mapping at every level. You obviously don't, have to go into the weeds with it at, where you are, but I review a lot of and see a lot of RFP, requests that come out, and I feel like a lot of times I wish people would have done this first of like, what are you trying to get to? And so I think as you're evaluating software and as you're looking for, how are we going to put this together? Having a high level journey map of, here's the channels that we want people to be able to connect to us on. Here's the overall outcome, even if it's maybe that, remember we talked about in the first one, you can do this on a what's ideal versus what's actual, and both are valuable. And at some point you'll want to overlay them and see where your pain points are. But you can start maybe where you are with what's ideal, because as you're picking software, as you're deciding on these processes, you want to maybe just take it and measure it against that. Like, is this going to get us where we're trying to go, versus making the individual decisions on, this is a cool platform, it's easy to use. Yeah, but does it drive you to what you're ultimately trying to do here, which is provide an experience for customers? So I do think that it's worth doing. I know it seems like a huge undertaking, but you can, get it to right size the project. Another thing we talked about, right? Like, don't try to do every single journey, every single, persona that you can do, but pick 5, right? And just go through the effort, get the right people engaged so you can go through and kind of have a view of, if we can do this, we won, right? And we did it. So picture what you want to do, use that as a guide as you're going through all of these other, decisions, and, and make sure that you're kind of channeling back to, is this really going to get us where we're going? Because it's easy as you're going through those processes to kind of lose sight of what you're trying to do in the end. So this might help keep you centered through those projects.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think you might have mentioned in the first session, or maybe this is just a thought that triggered as well, of like, start with the journey that like a large number of customers go through. So maybe that's another way to keep it high level, is like, just, I mean, it's simple, but starting with, okay, 80% of our customers follow this same path once they're trying to get support,
Right.
and starting there. So
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're not going to cover every edge case ever, right? Like, you can keep doing those forever, but yeah, get those first, 3 to 5, and kind of put those down, and have a place to start, and a place to refer back to.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Shelly, Tom Rocca here, and Trevor, thank you. I always talk to Connor Devine about these things too, from the Chick-fil-A side. And I always compliment you guys. Out of all folks, you happen to say something. And I always say the Chick-fil-A model, or the Chick-fil-A model, or the way you guys moved someone through the drive-through like I've never seen before in my life. And that is a compliment because I'm an Atlantan. But I wanted to mention, Shelly, you just acronyms and all the different seminars that we all go through and things. I keep hearing the customer journey mapping with the CX, the UX, and the EX. And I chuckle when I hear it, but I mean, it's always the customer experience, the user experience, and the employee experience.
Yeah.
And again, I use Trevor and Chick-fil-A as somewhat the piece of the customer going through a journey. The user would be somewhat, I would think, and you tell me if I'm wrong by this terminology, which would be the technology support around that process. And then the EX, which is what Trevor knows very well, is what the employee experience is, that they don't get frustrated, and the line moves pro, and the customers are happy, and they also have a great experience of making sure the food goes to the right car. They know it's Tom Rocca in the blue car, and It just seems like a real nice piece. And I guess maybe what I'm just making some comments, because I don't know if my terminologies are even correct. And that's how I've been talking, but I've been doing the best I can. And you've been doing a great job in your first session. And today was nice seeing some hard cases. So I just wanted to make the comment. And am I on track, or am I crazy?
Well, I think there's a lot as well. I don't know if I differentiate them quite the same way, but I don't think what you described is wrong at all. I think it makes total sense. But certainly we should be considering the CX and the EX for sure. So the employee experience, and I'm sure in your companies, whether you guys are engaged in those projects or, they're in other departments, everyone's talking about, employee experience and how we can make sure that, people are, it's a weird phenomenon right now. I don't know how many of you are experiencing this, of people just quitting their jobs. They just, have had enough, and they, just, it's hard to hire people. Like, there's unemployment so high right now, but a lot of it is because people just, need a break or need it, whatever, and have made these decisions in their life. So employee experience is more important than ever. And I think it's certainly something you can put into your customer journeys. We think back to Linda's, it was like, having a knowledge base so that agents can have the information at their fingertips. One, it improves the customer experience because they're getting a faster, hopefully more accurate answer, but also from the employee perspective, there's nobody in the customer service industry who wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to really screw this up today, right? Everybody's trying to give their best effort, and everybody's trying to give an amazing experience, and giving the tools to your agents or anybody at your company to be able to provide fast, accurate information and make people happy is why everybody, does what they do. So I definitely think it's important. From a user experience, the UX, is your software good? I think certainly, it's an important topic. I work for a software company, so we certainly, think about that. But I think that has to, it's another consideration in terms of, once you figure out what you're trying to do, and this goes back to, Trevor, what you were saying, we're picking tools, we're picking the platforms that we're going to work on. We all work in software every day. That has to support what everything else is doing. So I think that's a great way to kind of think about it. Like, is the customer getting what they need? Do we have the right tools in place, right? So that the agents and the consumers can be having a valuable interaction. And that's what it's about, right? Is providing value. And the tools have to play their part in there. So thanks for that, Tom. Who else has questions or, story to share around, trying to do this? Has anybody gotten pushback from their company? Like, yeah, it's a nice idea, but we're not really interested in doing this. No. There's a whole graveyard, I think, at every company around, good ideas that can't get executed because there's bandwidth constraints and there's time constraints. And so I would just encourage you to not get frustrated, right? And when you have opportunities, if this is something that you feel passionate about, where there's opportunities to say, hey, we could really impact this thing that happened, or, this problem that we're having, if we had an aligned customer, experience. I talk a lot to our team about, it's not just the customer facing people, right? It isn't just the agents that need to be able to do this. It's not just sales or whoever else is in front of customers. You guys have a little bit different business models, but from a software perspective, I'll talk to the developers about how important they are to the customer experience for our customers. And they'll say, why? We don't ever see the customers. How are we involved? That's your business over there. We're over here building software. And I say, yeah, but imagine like when that, and this is true for, if you're manufacturing goods or whatever, right? The people who are kind of making the goods, they have almost the most influence over the customer experience, right? Because as our software sits in front of people, they're experiencing our brand, right? As they use that software, as they consume your products, or, go on their trip, or whatever the case may be, that is part of their experience with their brand. And for the consumer, it isn't different. It's not like, oh, this is the person who's supposed to be making me feel good, and this is the person who does this other thing. Your whole brand is their experience. And so as you are thinking about it in terms of, getting started, try to get energy from other groups where you can say, we can provide you product feedback based on this. We can provide you, information about the consumers if you're talking to marketing. And so just try to generate some interest and activity. And I don't think that there's any companies who are like, yeah, we don't really care about the customer journey. If they are, they've, been under a rock for a while, because we all know it's the king and the differentiator that you can have. So I think just, if it's hard to get it started and it's hard to get it prioritized, I think, try to get energy from other teams where, you want to bring people together and it won't feel so overwhelming to you. Like I have to do this thing by myself and I already have 6 jobs that I'm doing.
Shelley,
If I,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I have a question. So it's good to work on this journey. At the end, what would you recommend as a kind of a performance indicator, KPI, to measure that we are delivering a good experience? Because it's a bit also the difficulty how to measure if we are there or not.
Yeah. I mean, obviously customer satisfaction, if you're, not measuring that today in some formal way, like understanding, there's kind of micro KPIs that you can look at under that, but overall, right, looking at some sort of customer satisfaction is what you want to do, whether that's a formal CSAT or something else. From just, if you kind of break that down, there's tools that can help you, just measure the experience that they're having with a certain group. So you can do surveys on your website to see if the experience that people are having there and have some triggers and measure that just in that experience. You can measure how people are doing just with the agents, right? What's the experience that they had there? Product satisfaction surveys, obviously. But then beyond that, I think you can start breaking it down to, looking at how quickly calls are able to be resolved, things that are going to increase your customer satisfaction. So, how is that happening? How many people are calling back? Are your loyalty numbers going up? There's a lot of KPIs that you can measure to see if people are more, ingrained in your brand. But I think from the journey mapping perspective, when you go through it, just like we heard from Linda and Deb, and others who have kind of gone through the process, it's really, you will pick out, here's an area of concern. And when you go back, these are living documents. So when you go back to revisit them in 6 months and say, we're going to experience our brand and see if this is improved, or see if, we're getting less complaints about this thing that we think we solved, right? People are asking for, how to find a product, or, what the ingredients are, if there's an allergen, and if your calls about that or your contacts about that are going down, or they're using, more channels, that might indicate that the service is better. Also, I think somebody mentioned before, maybe Eric, like when you're trying to find a new group of consumers, or sometimes you find them by accident when you open up a channel. So we've had customers implement a chatbot and they're like, we really want this to deflect a bunch of calls, not because they don't care about their customers, but we want to deflect calls because we want to spend time with, customers where there's a lot of, complication, and they really need a human being to help them through this thing. And that's a good way to go about it. Sometimes what happens is they do get some deflection. And sometimes what happens is a whole new bunch of consumers found them because they weren't willing to call you before, and they weren't willing to email you, but they are willing to chat with you on your website, or they are willing to send you a DM and get an answer on social. And so as you open up more channels, you'll find that it can create problems and solve problems and do all of those things, but your overall CX could be going up. So I went down a little bit of a tirade there, but did that answer your question, Liddy?
Thank you very much. Very clear.
Great. And Tom, I think you were going to jump in with a comment earlier.
Yeah, and Lindy, thank you so much for that comment, because that was good. I just was going to say something about you made a comment about kind of like the efficiencies, the streamlining. It's funny, I have either two things happen with me where someone will say, this was our journey, can you help map it? Or then the other side of it that just happened to me the other day, which was timely after your other presentation, which was, this was a construction team calling me, much like Trevor was mentioning, on a restaurant. And they were asking, before construction goes into the restaurant, can you help us map our journey to make sure the customer has the best experience, or the 2021-22 experience, which may even have be a COVID concept of just even pickup and delivery and so on. And that's what I was trying to get at too, is sometimes I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but these guys just happen to say, can you map it early to truly make it into something that we construct and go forward with, in comparison to going in and fixing it or just mapping it. So I just wanted to bring that up. So there's,
yeah, and it's the chicken and the egg, right? Because it's not, you know, it's not one thing. So this is a living, breathing thing that you're always going to have to adapt to. And, you know, I used to talk to people a lot about what I would call liquid expectations. And the world got so much smaller for us because now, right, we know what everybody else is experiencing. We have social media, we have all these ways to connect with each other, and you're no longer in charge of, you know, completely in charge of your brand story. All of your customers are also in charge of your brand story, and they will tell it however they, you know, see it. And the liquid expectations thing is, you know, I can remember working with a bank a while ago, and to them, they were like, you know, we are the best in the banking business. Like, nobody has a better customer experience than we do in banking. And I was like, great, nobody cares that you're a bank though. Like, you have to have the best customer experience, whether you're a bank or a restaurant or whatever, because we as consumers take the best experience we had, you know, whether it was, you know, whatever brand that was with, and we then have those expectations. So to your point of them saying the 21, 22 experience, right? It continues to change, but the best experience we have, you now, regardless of what business you're in, are now being held to that standard, and the bar keeps being raised. And so you always have to be thinking about it. And I think it's, you know, it's a great point that this should be the first thing you think about, and everything should get measured against it. And you cannot do these and frame them, right? You can't pull down the same customer journey map in 3 years and say, we're killing it, because the world moved on. You have to keep redoing these and saying, now where's the pain point? You know, customers cannot, you know, connect with us on TikTok. Okay, well, 2 years ago, that wasn't on our journey map, right? Or it wasn't on any of mine. Now, you know, going forward, it's like, that could be a pain point pretty soon, right? Now, I don't know that there's an expectation, but we're kind of right in that middle, right? So you have to look for those moments of pain point. The one other thing that I would say is make sure you also look for those magic moments, right? Look for those places where we're doing this today and there's no pain and the customers love it. Like, can we click it up a notch, right? Use these journeys to also look for, you know, where you really are strong. How can you play to that strength and not just the issues? All right, I was wrong. I was going to do a lot of the talking on this call. Who else has a story that they might want to share?
Well, it's Richard. It's not necessarily a story to share, but I mean, we're getting exponential here for it. So we have like all these different personas or issues, plus or times our contact methods,
Right.
times, you know, the different, you know, channels. Sorry, my camera's a little off.
That's all right.
Look like Wilson.
So
yes. So do you have any recommendations on like how to prioritize? Because that, you know, that I just fear that we're going to have like a proliferation of these things that's going to be very challenging.
I would, one, not separate by contact method or channel. I would, you know, best you can kind of draw those out. Like they, you know, they have these options, and try to keep those in one plan, because it will get crazy. And also, that's not how people interact with you, right? Most people interact on at least 3 different channels through, you know, through a contact. So, you know, I wouldn't separate those. And then I would say, just start with 3 or 5, even if you don't feel like it covers everything, because you'll find if you just work through a few that you're like, okay, this can fit in here, or this isn't that different from that, or hey, we need a whole set over here. But you will kind of naturally come to it. It's a little bit of analysis paralysis when you start this, because you're like, oh my gosh, I can't possibly ever write down all the ways we can communicate with customers. Just pick the main ones, get those worked through, and then you'll figure out what's important to do in kind of the next, you know, concentric circle. But I would say, try to get the ones that are the most common, because you're going to get your biggest bang for the buck doing those, and then, you know, figure out if it's worth doing the next set, which I think you'll think it is. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. We think we're getting close to the top of the hour. Hopefully, you know, this was valuable, and I am happy to talk to anybody about, you know, moving forward. If you guys get stuck, I think you have my my contact information in the recording. Happy to talk to anybody further about their journeys or how we can, you know, help. If you just have questions, please reach out. You know, this is a topic that I'm passionate about, and I think it's how we're going to move, you know, move all of these brands forward in a way that, you know, creates better experiences for customers. So happy to discuss at any point.
Great job, Shelley.
Thank you. All right, guys.
All right.
Have a great rest of your day.
Yep.
Shelley,
Thank
thank you so much for
Great webinar.
sharing.
Thank you,
your
Shelley.
knowledge
Very
with all
great
of
job.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.